So I must start by asking you to put your hands together like this, and you say Ayubowan Vanakam. Ayubowan
Ayubowan
Vanakam.
Vanakam.
Ayubowan is the Sinhalese version, and Vanakam is the Tamil version of our traditional greeting. Ayubowan means may you be blessed with long life. And this comes from my heart because you're taking the time in all the countries in the world you could be learning about and selling. You're choosing my little island, so I'm really grateful. I used to be the director of the Sri Lanka Tourist Board here in the UK, which is how I know Andrea. I did that for 4 years. Before that, I was a DMC with 2 different DMCs in Sri Lanka, and I worked in hotels in Sri Lanka. And now, through my business, Your Tourism Partner, I have clients around the world, mainly in Sri Lanka, but a couple of others which will be starting up in 2021, which I hopefully will be able to come back and talk to you on another date. With Sri Lankan clients, I've brought them under the brand of Secrets of Ceylon, and I'll explain why as I go along. So key thing is to understand why Sri Lanka, what type of customer that this country attracts or is good for, and what are the experiences. So hopefully you'll get some of these answered as we go along. And then individually, when I have chats with you, then I can be more specific when I know that, okay, I'm looking at Mike's bird behind him. I'm assuming he might be interested in bird watching. So I can get drilled down a little bit more specifically on that, but might be the only one who's interested in birds. So I don't want to get into it in this presentation. Sri Lanka is truly a melting pot. We have a population of 21 million. We have a mix of religions, but the majority religion is Buddhism. And with that comes some very unique and interesting opportunities for experiences of learning meditation, learning about history, because we have 2,000 years of recorded history. Our oldest tree dates back over 1,500 years old, the Bodh tree in Anuradhapura, where it's a sapling from where the Lord Buddha attained enlightenment. So it's, it's huge interest there. Most people never visit the Bodh tree in Anuradhapura. We have a very strong Islamic community, Hindu faith and Christianity, and each give their own color and influence into the country. We know that Sri Lanka is a former British colony, but many don't realize that we were under the Dutch and the Portuguese beforehand. So it really adds a lot of vibrance and color to what we offer. Kandy fell to the British in 1815. So while for over 200 years we were under the Portuguese, the British, and the Dutch, it was only in 1815 that we lost our royalty, when we lost that to the British in 1815. So our last seat of royalty is the Kingdom of Kandy, or the town of Kandy, where you have the tooth relic of the Lord Buddha, and it is 1,500 feet above sea level. A lot of people don't realize what rich biodiversity Sri Lanka has, and most itineraries will have a last day on the round trip in Yala National Park, and that's paying lip service to a country which is roughly the size of Ireland, whose tallest mountain is double the height of Ben Nevis, where 30% of our country is protected natural asset, where 2 of our 8 UNESCO World Heritage Sites are because of nature, and we have 6 Ramsar sites. Ramsar is a convention on places of natural significance in the world, and we've got 6 of those. We've got 400 waterfalls, and our tallest waterfall is 5 times the height of Niagara Falls. There's a good one for your next pub quiz, because when you can get to the pub. Because Niagara Falls' beauty is its width, but this our tallest waterfall is really a trickle, but it's very tall, 265 meters high. We have many rivers and loads of endemic birds. Our total now is 34 endemic birds, and we have beautiful butterfly and dragonfly. And this is just a very quick illustration of all the natural protected areas in Sri Lanka. And as you can see, there are so many. Yala National Park on the bottom right of the map in green is the most popular park, but it isn't necessarily the best park. And I'll talk about that towards the end of the presentation. We also have 8 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. 6 of them are to do with history and culture, and 2 of them, as I said, are natural assets. So number 6, Singharaja Rainforest, and number 8 are to do with our nature. I'm going to give you a link at the end to a very similar video to the one I'm doing now, so that you can press pause when you watch it and you can take a screen grab or you can take further notes. So sometimes if I'm going too fast, don't worry, because I'll give you a link to this this identical presentation that you can, review when you need to. So when you go to Sri Lanka, typically, if you look at every tour operator brochure in the UK, they do the same thing. And I left the tourist board. I joined the tourist board in 2005, January, and I left in 2008. And Andrea will attest to the fact that the same itinerary that Mercury was doing then, they're doing now. And that's not only them, it's everybody, which is where you start off in Colombo or Negombo on the west coast. The airport is just in between the two. You stay a night or two to get acclimatized. You then go up to the top big red circle where we have our cultural triangle, which is Anuradhapura UNESCO site, Polonnaruwa UNESCO site, Sigiriya, Dumbledore UNESCO site. So we've got 4 UNESCO sites here. You generally visit Anuradhapura or Polonnaruwa, and because of proximity, you find that nobody does Anuradhapura. They all do Polonnaruwa, and so they do Dumbledore, Sigiriya, Polonnaruwa for 2 nights. They then go up, and I'm going down and saying up because Kandy is elevated above sea level, to Kandy, which is where you have the tooth of the Lord Buddha in a sacred temple called the Kandy Temple, or the Dalida Maligava Temple. So we'll use Kandy Temple for ease of pronunciation and spelling, and which is also UNESCO World Heritage Site. You then go further up to Norelia, which we also call Little England. And the reason we call it Little England is it's cold and it rains all the time. So again, you don't want to overemphasize this town, because I didn't pay all that money to go to Sri Lanka to have a cold weather. But yes, there are beautiful tea plantations and waterfalls, but I don't want to spend more than a day there because it's too cold. And then you go down to to Yala National Park. So that's your traditional tour. And you choose a beach hotel along the southwest coast. So to show this to you in a little bit of picture, Negombo is a sleepy fishing village. Colombo, and I'm going to show you a newer picture. These are old postcards, but I'll show you a newer picture of Colombo and how it's changed. Sigiriya Rock is a beautiful rock which juts 500 feet out of the flat plains around. And it's a beautiful story of where the king, Dutugamanu, was killed by his illegitimate son, Kashapa, and how Kashapa managed to build a palace, having killed his father, the king, on a rock 500 feet above sea level, and bring all the supplies, the bricks, everything up to build a kingdom on top of this rock, and how he created protections and barricades to stop his brother, who went to India and a couple of years later came back with troops to try to defeat him. Fantastic story, not to be missed. And you have the beautiful frescoes there. The lion's paw. So when you talk about Sri Lankans, Sri is from the Sanskrit of Sinhala, and Sinhala means lion's race. So mythology tells us that Singha, like Singhabir in Singapore, we are all in Sri Lanka originally from the cross-fertilization between a woman and a lion. So we are a strong race. And this castle was built to scale that the entrance, and you entered into the castle through the lion's mouth. And you can see here the lion's paws. Of course, a lion doesn't have just 3 nails. We all know that. But this is going back a time where we were linked to India. And this, again, this 3-toed creature is from mythology. So it's very, very fascinating. You also have Dumbledore Caves, which are cave side. You have beautiful paintings which are done out of vegetable dye, not touched up for 1,500 years and still in really good condition. You have this ancient city of Polonnaruwa and the ancient city of Anuradhapura, both fairly similar. What's interesting is Anuradhapura is predominantly Buddhist. Polonnaruwa is a mix of Hindu and Buddhist, and they coexisted. So in the same building, in the same spot, you'll see the lingam, which is a relic, and you'll see the lingam, which is Hindu, and you'll see Buddhist artifacts at the same time. So it's quite interesting. Now, one of the things to bear in mind is distances. Again, on the video, you'll be able to look at this in more detail, but we sometimes forget that our visitor, our guest who's entrusted their holiday to us, has not entrusted their holiday to spend 30 to 40% of my time on holiday in a car. As beautiful as that car may be, with the best Boss speakers and the most comfortable seats, I do not want to spend time in the car. And everybody chases this tick boxing exercise of let's make sure they do all of these things to give them the one holiday that they'll never have to come back to Sri Lanka ever again. The customer is exhausted, and at the end of their holiday, they need a holiday. And they never need to come back to Sri Lanka, so you don't get any repeat business. So it doesn't make any sense at all. So again, you can pause this on the video to sink in, but this is just to give you an idea. And of course, today, Google Maps tells us all the distances ourselves. So don't trust your tour operator, check with Google and double check it yourself. In Kandy, we have the Temple of the Tooth, which is a fascinating temple to visit. And Kandy town is a very important town. It is the last seat of royalty. And we jokingly say that the Canadian people are very proud, but it's true. They are different people to the rest of the country, and they're very proud to be different. And it's a fascinating city. A lot of people spend 2 nights. I would argue you should spend 4 days in Kandy and really stretch it out. And there are a lot of beautiful cultural dance itineraries to see in the evening, and cultural dance performances in Kandy, but very, very touristic-y. You go further up to Norelia to see some of the tea plantations, to visit a tea factory, to taste fresh tea, which, by the way, gives you a high. Just like if you haven't smoked for two days and you normally smoke, you get a nicotine high. When you drink a fresh cup of tea, you get a head rush. And to see some of the beautiful waterfalls that Sri Lanka has to offer. So what I want to challenge you on those existing itineraries, most good tour operators have taken Pinnavilla Elephant Orphanage out. It used to be the craze 10 years ago to visit the elephant orphanage, but many of us consider it a zoo and we avoid it, and most good tour operators don't visit there anymore. When you're visiting the Cultural Triangle, most people skip Anuradhapura. I would suggest you put it in, because suddenly then you're doing something different in your itinerary, which everyone else doesn't. And also, while you're doing the big things of Sigiriya or Dambulla, include a couple of small places like Enderagala or Yapahua, so that, because those small places, A, are different, they're less touristic-y, and the cost to visit them are almost negligible. So it makes a big difference. I question whether every tour needs to go to Norelia and Yala, because it's far off the main beaten track. And you could actually get to Kandy, and from Kandy, come back to Colombo or go to the beach or go to Dubai or go to the Maldives to the beach. So you could do a smaller mini tour. And as I said, make sure that you're not rushing from pillar to post and spending the 3 to 4 hours a day in a car that many people do. Also, I would suggest slowing down, and instead of spending 1 night or 2 nights in each hotel, try just 3 or 4 nights per hotel, so that there's not so many changes, and I can always help you on that on a one-to-one discussion, but just to make it a little bit easier. And use the highways. There's a lot of new highways coming up in Sri Lanka. So from the airport, which is Katunayaka, the highway to Colombo was finished many years ago. The link highway from Colombo to Potava has been completed. So you actually never come into Colombo now to go down south. And this highway all the way down to Hambantota is in place, so all of that is fantastic. Not ready yet, but opening in the next 2 to 3 years will be the highway from the airport straight to Kurunegala, and then future on to Kandy and Dambulla. But just so you know, there are plans being done, and things will be improved very soon. And of course, the beauty of Google Map is as soon as this is up, Google Map reflects the timing on the increased speed, so it's quite easy to know is it up or not. Some alternative ideas, as I said, slow down the travel and stay in 2 or 3 centers rather than 5. So maybe stay the first 2 or 3 days in Negombo, and then go to the Cultural Triangle and stay 2 or 3 days, and then stay in the hills around Kandy, but in the hills so that you can do Kandy, and you can also do the tea and the waterfalls without having to change. So you could actually change it to a 3-center spot. Again, the wildlife, I'd stay for longer. So there's many other wildlife parks, and I'll show you that in a moment, how you could get into some of those. There's lots of beautiful places which are less known. And actually, tea is all over the country. So you could be at the beach, and within an hour and a half, go and see a tea plantation from your beach resort. So you don't have to go in the traditional way that we do. So I spoke earlier, and sorry if I'm going too fast. By the way, let's make this interactive. So if I'm going fast, please interrupt and say, ho, I have a question. So apologies for saying that a bit late. So let me stop here for a moment. Have I lost anybody, or does anybody have a question on what I've said so far? Okay, do feel free to interrupt me at any time. So as I said, we all go to the Cultural Triangle. We all stay somewhere central, like in Sigiriya or Dambulla. I'm sorry, my mouth, here we go. In Sigiriya or Dambulla is where some of the hotels people stay at, and then you do day excursions to Polonnaruwa, potentially to Anuradhapura. And so one of the things that people forget is that Anuradhapura is only an hour from Wilpattu National Park. So when you're staying here, you could already be doing a day excursion to visit Wilpattu National Park. So that's a reason to do Anuradhapura, is stay in Anuradhapura and do Wilpattu National Park. If you are staying in the Sigiriya Dambulla, you have Mindaria, which is only an hour away from there. So again, you could visit a second national park when you're there. And there's also Wasgamur. So there's 3 national parks close by. So why are you going all the way to Norelia, and from Norelia going all the way to Yala, just to go down to that corner of the country to see one national park and spend 3 hours in it? So again, just to bring that up. Enderagala is one of the many beautiful places that are, the Enderagala temple is in Dambulla, and Enderagala is one of those beautiful hermitage temples. You don't pay an entrance fee. You give like a $2 or $3 tip when you're leaving to the temple as a donation, and you can just walk in, and very few people visit it. So Enderagala is near Dambulla, but there's many other places like that, like Kaludia Pokuna, and less known attractions, which just give the customer, especially in a post-COVID era, everywhere you go, you don't want to be going with the bus loads. You don't want to be coming across 15 buses. So these are just some of the ideas of ways to avoid some of that. Another thing is, I mentioned, Mindaria National Park and Kaludia Pokuna. Mindaria is the most spectacular place in Sri Lanka, which is where we have the elephant gathering, but I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. In Kandy, while you definitely need to do the Kandy Temple, potentially do the Royal Botanical Gardens, why not visit one of the smaller, less-known temples like Mbeke, like Lankatilaka, like the Gada Dela Denia, which I can never pronounce. Apologies, I hashed that up. These are small temples, all kind of 40-45 minutes away. I would say 70-80% of the time that I visited them, you are the only people there. There might be one other car. And so they're just really nice because you're feeling that you're visiting something real and authentic and off the beaten track. If you're down south on the beach, I know 2.5 hours is quite a long drive, but you could have a day excursion from the beach to see a waterfall if you didn't make it up to earlier. So this is looking at Benthuter to go up on the existing roads, which will be improved with the new highways coming up. Another one, if you're down south, is Richmond Castle, a little bit more touristic-y, but again, off the beaten track. So just because you're staying on the beach, message I'm trying to give you is don't think that there aren't things to do on the beach as day excursions that you can organize into an itinerary rather than just leaving your guests to be on their own on the beach. I want to touch a little bit about north of Colombo. So most of the time, Negombo, which is a fishing village. But, and again, on the longer video, you can pause and look at this because I'm just going to rattle through. I'm just trying to open your minds that there's so many different things to see and do if you're based in Negombo for day trips. So why is it that we only do the first or last night in that area of Negombo, north of Colombo? So here's just some distances and a map to take that through. Again, I can talk to you one-on-one on this if you want to know more. Some of those are beautiful. One of our Ramsar sites is near Negombo, where you have a wetland sanctuary for bird watching. So that might be of particular interest to some of you. You have dolphin and whale watching on the north of Negombo. Wilpattu National Park, which I already made mention of, which is an amazing wildlife park and really becoming popular. It's less crowded, it's more dense than Yala, but very interesting. You have a beautiful and historical temple called Muneswaram, which is very, very important to the Hindus. And many people, even Buddhists, when they drive past, they'll stop and make a little offering just because, you want to hedge your bets and make sure that all the gods are looking after you. You have Anadua and the Thornigala Rock inscription. I mean, if you see these images on the right, small little hermitage temples, I'm sure most of you haven't seen this. And I'm sure big tour operators that you may work with don't know these places either. But this is the way you're going to win this, because in this environment, you're up against 10-pound quotes, where somebody's getting it 10 pounds cheaper somewhere else. Well, by adding some of these things, you then no longer comparing apples with apples, and you're then making sure that you're not losing the business and all that hard work just because somebody's willing to, forego their margin by 10 pounds. We all know the Gaul Fort, which is one of our UNESCO World Heritage Sites, but few of us have visited the Kalpitiya Dutch Fort. So these are just to give you a little bit of a idea that there's so much to do north of Negombo. So you can actually stay in Negombo for a week and do an activity every day and have a stay put tour where you stay 7 days in the same hotel on the beach. Every day you're doing a different excursion and obviously have to get all the key pillars, plantations, you get some history, you can get some wildlife, all by staying at a beach or the airport, with only half an hour from the airport. But we assume that to see Sri Lanka, we have to get into a car and change hotels every 2 days and cover 2,000 kilometers. It's not necessary. The last one is the Dutch Canal, which is a canal that runs almost from Negombo all the way down to Colombo, which was the way they carried all the shipment before the time of trains and heavy goods vehicles. So the canal is there, you can do boat rides. And by doing this, you really see the local life and off the touristic trap. Colombo City. And sorry, I keep going back to Mercury Holidays and Andrea, just because somebody I know, but we used to avoid Colombo when I was the director of the Sri Lanka Tourist Board because we had a war going on. So we didn't really talk about it because quite often Colombo was affected by the war. But today Colombo is amazing. Fantastic museums. The Wolfendoll Church, the bottom right-hand picture, is an old church from the 1700s with a pipe organ which still works, and all the Dutch graves, that you actually have to, all the people were buried inside the church, so you actually are walking over tombstones. It's kind of weird, but that's the way they did it. With a good DMC, you can access one of the private members clubs like the Royal Colombo Golf Club to have a drink in the evening, or the rowing club, so that you're going into a place where Sri Lankans hang out. The Dutch have the Dutch Burger Union, which is again a lovely one. And if you can't get into the private clubs, then the popular place is the Golf Face Hotel, which has the checkerboard at sunset, and you have hymns o'clock, and you have, you know, people playing bagpipes and weird stuff like that. Not that bagpipes are weird, please don't get me wrong, but bagpipes in Sri Lanka seems weird, which is why I said it in that way. The train, and this is just a golf. Anybody who loves golf has to play at the Royal Colombo Golf Club, because a round of golf there is amazing. There's some very, very good golfers that we can pair you up with. If you're, you know, if you've got a handicap of 3 or 4, we can really give you a good challenge. We have a train, a daily commuting train, which goes through the golf course, which is spectacular. And just for that, it's worth visiting. Colombo dining has come a long way. Make sure you take your guests to Park Street Mews or Dutch Hospital. There are outdoor areas where you have 3-4 restaurants around, and when you plonk the customer there, they can just go around and eat wherever they want. And so they're not feeling like they're restricted, because one of the things in Sri Lanka is most of the hotels are not necessarily close to a whole bunch of restaurants. So you need to tell them about it. They can jump into a taxi. Taxis are really cheap and very safe, so that they can go to some of these places, but you may just want to point them in the right direction. Shopping has exploded in Sri Lanka. We've got amazing spices, tea, gem and jewelry, health and spa products. Spa Ceylon has just opened at, what's the big shopping center in London, central London, near the old BBC office? What's that called? Help me here. Anyways, it'll come back to me. But anyways, Barcelona a week ago has just opened up in the big shopping complex there. And we have many shopping centers now, which some are open, some are going to be open soon. Moving further down along the southwest coast, these are some of the big towns that you'll come across. You'll find that a lot of them don't have very much to do in and around them, but I tried to just put a couple of tips that, again, when you look at the video, you can pause. And when you're choosing a hotel in Benthuta, you can compare the location just by what I've said here, or you can give me a call and we can discuss it and say whether, you know, so if you go to Indira, bear in mind that it's beautiful beaches, you might be in the most amazing hotel, but you're not going to have much to do outside your hotel. And that was the purpose of putting this together. And the same further down going along the coast. So if you have somebody who's into surfing, you need to put them in Weligama or Mirissa. And if they're going into a boutique hotel, you probably want to make sure they're near Mathura, so that they have lots of shopping options, so that they can buy their groceries and stuff like that. So that's the reason of sharing these little points with you. On wildlife, again, each national park is so different. Just to give you an idea of size, Yala is the size of Barbados and St. Lucia put together. So it's slightly big. And I've tried to give you a little bit of an idea of what Yala is. And again, a little bit of what Wilpattu is. Wilpattu in itself, which is north of Negombo, is the size of Antigua. And it gives you a little bit of information there. And the same for Udualaway. Those are the 3 more common parks. But main area that I mentioned near Dumbledore and Sigiriya, every July, August, and sometimes that continues into October, you have a phenomena that we've identified and we've coined the elephant gathering. It is where 150 to 200 elephants come together every year like clockwork. One of the main reasons they come from 3 national parks is because there's a drought on, so they're coming to water, and Mineria has more water. But the fact that they come and they chill out together and they talk and they interact, and I kid you not, I took my kids over half term 3 years ago for the first time, and it was mind-blowing. I think we counted like 160 elephants and couldn't keep track because they kept on moving. But to stop in one place and just watch a herd of elephants this size blows your mind. I can guarantee you, my kids have not stopped talking about it. We also have, for those of you who like nature, we always get frustrated that everybody goes off to Africa for wildlife. So we've now coined, or my friend Gehan de Silva has coined the term our big five. So we have the big blue, the blue whale. We have the big tooth, the sperm whale. The big cat, the leopard. The big eight, the elephant. And our big bear, which is the sloth bear. Now, the amazing thing is it's only in South Africa and in Sri Lanka that you can see whale and elephant within an hour of each other. So that's your second point for your next pub quiz when you do get to the pub, that it's only two places in the world that you can see the elephant and the whale within an hour of each other. And we're really trying to promote this side of Sri Lanka to really come out and spend a week in the jungle. That's what says big game safari or Mahura campsites, where we actually have tents and we can set up the tent in any 9 national parks, and we set it up inside the national park so that you're actually living with the wildlife for 2 or 3 days. You have running hot water, you have your flushable toilet, and all those mod cons that many of us want. We don't want to be too basic in this, but you're inside the park in a temporary structure which is set up the day before you come and taken down the day after you leave, which makes it completely different and an amazing experience. And it's so isolated that, in fact, when the whole country went into lockdown, or the whole world went into lockdown, we had some guests in one of the deep places just north of Yala in Kumana, and they were camping inside, and it was only 3 days after the lockdown had started that they actually realized that there was such a thing as lockdown, because they were so cut off from the rest of the world. And we were in touch with the driver by SMS because there's no Wi-Fi in the park. But we chose with working with the tour operators and with the group leader, we chose not to tell the guests because there was nothing that we were going to change, and we didn't need to, ruin their amazing experience. And then we got them on the next plane out as planned. And then just to remind you that if you're doing Sri Lanka, we're great for spa and health. There's some amazing wellness holidays. We have a huge activity and list of cultural events and festivals. In April, for example, the 13th of April is the New Year in Sri Lanka. And you do things such as you don't light fire for 24 hours from the old year into the new year. So there's no cooking. You then light the first fire inside your house on the floor, where you boil milk in a pot on the floor and let the milk spill over the side of the saucepan onto the floor, which is a sign of abundance, that your new year is going to have abundance. You will not go to the doctor. It doesn't matter if there's COVID or you're pregnant and about to have a baby or whatever else it is. You ain't going to go to the hospital on the first day of the new year, because then it means you're going to be sick for the whole year. So you won't go back. You'll be going to hospital every day for the year. So you avoid the hospital on the first day of the new year. And you have every year an auspicious color. So, it might be blue. So the first clothing you wear on the new year is blue. And you must face southwest when you walk out of your house for the first day of work. Sometimes very hard if your house is facing the other way, but you might end up walking out of your house backwards because you must be facing the right way to walk out. Now, all of this can be, it's funny. We don't take it seriously. I don't believe in these, but it's a great immersive experience to come in, and you don't have to wait for the new year for that to happen. Why not create for your guests a new year experience where they go through all of this for whatever day in their trip? And they understand the historical significance and what is the reason that people aren't going to the hospital. Why are they not doing this? So there's lots of cultural elements that you can add in to any tour that you do. And that's what I really want to encourage you, is to work with your tour operator, with your DMC. I can help you. I'm very happy to help you at the beginning to have 2 or 3 signature events that you're going to do, that whenever you have a client coming to Sri Lanka, they must do 3 things. They must have a cooking demonstration. They must have a session learning about the medicinal values of the spices and herbs. And they must learn the local traditions of New Year, for example. And that comes onto my website. So one of the things that I did is I created a site called secretsofceylon.co.uk. I did this for a couple of reasons. Number one is that as you can see, I'm tired of the traditional, I'm tired of the normal. I want to challenge different things. Number two, I wanted to have an area for agents like yourself. So if you go to the tab Trade, you'll see various videos that I or other hoteliers have put together. I represent W15 Hantana, which is a wonderful, very high-end experience in the hills of Sri Lanka, so it can cover your Kandy and your Norelia needs. Taru Villas, we have 12 villas along the southwest coast from Negombo all the way down to Yala, ranging from 2 to 9 rooms. And Villa Hundira, which is a new hotel I'm starting to work with, which is in Negombo, but it's very much a homestay, a 14-room homestay. And I'm signing up one other hotel, which you'll have the video on here next week, which is called Tabula Rasa. But I've also invited some hotels I don't represent to be part of this because I want to make sure that you can see, what did I just do? You can get an idea of some of the really nice experiences. So if you click on any of these, you'll be able to watch a 15 to 20-minute video presented by myself or one of the hoteliers to give you an introduction to that hotel. And so you can do that at your pace. Another thing I wanted to share is that on the website, under the trade section, I'm going to be loading events. Every month, I'm going to do a different event. The first one is on the 20th of Jan. Sri Lankan food is very unique. And I've termed immune boosting cuisine. One of the reasons that we have a very low mortality rate due to COVID in Sri Lanka is that people eat healthy. A lot of the food is naturally vegetarian and naturally vegan. And a lot of the minerals and like zinc or other things that you're supposed to have in your diet to help you strengthen and help you to fight COVID naturally, not to avoid COVID, but just to help your body be able to cope with COVID, comes in Sri Lankan food. So I'm going to be doing a presentation on that on the 20th. Just go to the website, click there. It's a Zoom one if you'd like to participate in that. On the home page, I do a couple of consumer evenings. And these I have one on the 21st, which is for Sri Lankan cuisine to teach about Sri Lankan food. And I do a cooking demonstration and a more general presentation that I'm doing there. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is some of you may know a colleague who works with you called Alicia Sharp, Lux Eco Holidays. We've been interacting a lot since we met a couple of months ago, and we've had 2 cooking demonstrations. We've done 2 presentations, and I'm helping her put together a little group to go out to Sri Lanka in September. And so I'm very happy, and I'd love to, in fact, do one-to-one discussions, have one-to-one discussions with you to be able to look at, what exactly do you want? What do you focus on? What's your unique angle, and how can I help you bring what is natural and unique to you out of Sri Lanka so that you can offer something different, help you put those tours and itineraries together. Ideally, they'll be involving some of my hotels, but it won't always work that way, just so that I have a commercial benefit from the interaction. And also, all the hotels in Sri Lanka are very happy to help with fam trips, giving discounts, supporting you to come out and see it. We will be organizing, when the time is right, probably in May, we'll have a small fam trip going out. But as you know, air seats are the biggest question. I'm still waiting on the airlines to confirm if there's such a thing called an 80/50 and a discount rate or not, but I'll get back to you as soon as I do. So I just want to end by saying, here are my details, info@secretsofceylon.co.uk. My mobile number is there. Send me a WhatsApp, give me a call. I'd love to talk one-on-one because I appreciate that each of you run your own business. And, this is great to get a little bit of an introduction, but I believe in working one-to-one, customizing how I can help, and pointing you in the right direction where I can. So really, that's probably all I wanted to say, but I'd love to open up to any questions. And as I said, if you go to Secrets of Ceylon, this slide here is the key one. So if you go to secretsofceylon.co.uk/trade, or just go to secretsofceylon.co.uk and click on trade, and you'll see the events and you'll see the other videos. And of course, my contact details are on this site. And I'd love to hear from you. So just to conclude, before we go into question and answer, Ayubowan. Can we all say Ayubowan? Ayubowan. So, any questions? I rattled on a lot there, so apologies. I hope I wasn't too fast for some, but any questions?
Anyone have any questions?
I've just got one. Oh, do you want to go first, Jenny?
No, you go.
But just out of interest, I had a client ask me a question about the swimming, and at certain times of year or on certain coastlines, is it not safe for them to go swimming? Because basically he wanted to be on a beach holiday, but he wanted to be able to go swimming every day in the sea.
Great question. And let me just pull out a very quick map so that we know.
I had a bit of conflicting information when I was trying to find out.
You know what? The problem is El Nino and La Lina, or whatever we call these things 10 years ago. Traditionally, if you look at your hand, well, let me use the screen because otherwise it goes the wrong way around.
Right.
Yeah, right. So the southwest coast, which is from Negombo all the way down to Gaul, is best November to March or April.
Yeah.
And that is because that's the best time where the seas are calm. It's the same as the Maldives.
Yeah.
And the other months where the southwest monsoon hits the southwest, so you can't go really, that's when the sea on the east coast gets much, much better. So on this old map, we have only highlighted Nilaveli and Nilaveli as the main beach resort area.
Right.
But now further down here, we have an area called Pasikuda. And Pasikuda, let me just write it on the chat. Pasikuda is where you have 10 beach hotels, beautiful beach hotels. So suddenly now that the war is ended, Pasikuda, now that the war is ended, so it's on the chat, you do the cultural triangle and either do the beach on the east coast if you're visiting May to October,
right,
or you do the beach on the west coast if you're visiting November to April.
Right, great.
Of course, on the southwest coast, there's loads of small bays and bays within bays. So if you have a particular client who wants the waves to do surfing, then you're going to Arugam Bay, or in the summer, our summer, you're going to Arugam Bay. In the winter, you're going to Weligama. If you want a quiet beach, so if you just call me and then just we can have a quick discussion on, you know, what time, which month, what is the best beach, and does he want big waves, no waves, small waves, and we can find him a solution based on him or her solution based on that.
That's excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You answered my question. I was going to ask around when's best time to go and where. So
okay, so
thank you.
Just to cover that in a little bit more. So best time is defined by when Europeans want to go. So Sri Lanka is great all year round, but we want to go when it's cold, miserable, and dark. So we have created a season in Sri Lanka because we all go December to March. So December to March is the most expensive because there's demand. There's nothing different about Sri Lanka. So if you go in June or if you go in July, August, you're going to have an awesome holiday, much cheaper, less people, and you're going to have the same thing. Now, the question then comes, do you want the beach? And 99% of the people say, who visit Sri Lanka, I want to be on the beach, I want to see the sea, but I spend my whole day by the pool. Right? So they want to, and in fact, when the beach is rough, it's really nice because the waves are crashing. It gives you that sound waking up when you're having coffee in the morning. You can hear the crashing waves. I love that, but you can't swim. So some people really want to get in the water, and so you need to tackle them differently. But 90% of the people want to be on the beach, but they will always be by their pool. they will never go on the beach other than to walk in the morning or in the evening. So you need to understand the customer, because why force them to go in January when they could have gone for half price in June? And in June, you can now keep a higher margin because the price is lower, so you can make more money too. So that's the way I look at it. You have small variances in terms of the seasonality, that, for example, we say that in September, it rains a lot. And I had a customer, I was working with the tourist board, somebody called and said, I'm coming in September, is it going to rain? I said, it might rain, not a lot. She came back, she called me, she said, you told me to go. It rained all 9 days that I was there, and I'm really pissed off. And I was just like, sorry, there's nothing I can do, but I'll speak to God next time you want to go again. But you know, so there are some little nuances like that, and you can look at an average weather chart and you need to bear it in mind. But in some parts of the country, it pisses it with rain in December, January. So, you know, it's one of those things. 31st night, almost every year, it threatens to rain, and in some years it rains. But that's the big night, where that's the highest supplement to stay in any hotel. You have that New Year's supplement where you're paying $100 more to have rain and go back inside the AC ballroom to have your dinner because it's raining outside. But, you know, that happens. So I wouldn't get caught up with the weather. I think it really depends on what they want to do. If there are surfer or they want to do snorkeling or scuba diving, yes, that matters. But we have scuba diving on both sides of the island. When the whales are on the west coast, they're not on the east coast. But when they're on the east coast, they're not on the west coast. So if you want a whale, I can provide whales to you, you know, for 6-7 months of the year, because they'll be on one side or the other. So it really just depends on what you're looking to. But the month in principle shouldn't matter. It just changes your itinerary and where you're going to go, and whether you're going to do the beach in the east coast or the beach on the west coast.
Lovely, thank you.
Can I just ask quickly, what is the policies, do you think, going forward with Sri Lanka on COVID and UK arrivals? Because obviously the booking Julie was talking about, he wanted to go and we couldn't send him because he just couldn't go in February. So what do you think? Yeah. I mean, obviously so they have to isolate.
Sri Lanka will come back to normal somewhere in May.
May.
We have opened the airport. We had our first group of Ukrainian charter flight come in on the 29th, I think it is. We have 29 flights from Ukraine coming in coming days. All charter groups to test protocol. I believe end of January, we're going to have other flights from Germany, charter groups, again, just to control and get used to it. Our biggest issue in Sri Lanka is up to September, we had about 11. When you compare it, that's fantastic. We have closed the country fully, and when we closed it in March, April last year, you were locked down. Supermarket trucks came to your house. You couldn't even go to the supermarket. You had to sit outside your house and trucks came to you. The government, military style, we did everything. We then started allowing some limited flights, bringing Sri Lankans back in October, and suddenly we're getting 2,000 cases a day. So there's a correlation between COVID and foreigner, or Sri Lankan coming from overseas, because we're an island, so we don't have COVID. So we're trying to manage the needs of the Sri Lankans first, because tourism is 12% of GDP, so hugely important. But you know what? We can live without 12% of GDP if we have to, right? Because the livelihoods of the people are more important, and we have other industries that can keep us going. We can manage without 12%. So we have 200,000 direct employees of tourism, which is huge, but there's 21 million people in the country, right? So we're trying to go slowly. And the other challenge we have is the biggest profession in Sri Lanka are accountants. We have more British qualified accountants than we have in the UK. So everybody is tick boxing. So our protocol for you to visit requires a university degree to follow, and you have to jump through about 3 hoops and get about 20 injections in the space of a week. I'm exaggerating, but there's a lot to do. So while the airport will open in January, I don't think any of your customers will want to go in January, and I don't advise them to go. I'm not sending anybody in January, right? Let's let that opening happen. Let us get used to it. Let's get the protocols fixed. There's no prize for being the first one to go. I'm saying May optimistically. Hopefully it's going to happen much before, and you're going to come back and say, oh, it was ready in March, and that's great. But the effort to rebook a customer, the effort is huge. So I've made the personal call that I'm focusing on May and beyond, because then at least I know I don't have to unbook, because there's too much effort and hassle going into that. I'm just being very open with you. I'd love for tourism tomorrow. I get paid commission on guests coming into the hotel, so there's no reason why I wouldn't want you to send somebody in Feb. I don't want the hassle. I don't want you to go through the hassle. I don't want to go through the hassle unnecessarily. And that's why I'm being very open and frank with you.
Well, we can't go anywhere anyway till sort of middle of February.
Yeah.
As it happens now.
I think really focus on May and beyond, and push it. I would love to do cooking demonstrations. I've done 2 with Alicia, where she got 20 customers to come and do a live Zoom cooking demonstration. I would love to do a presentation with some of your customers to talk about Sri Lanka, plant the seed, and do all of that stuff now, because people are at home. Now, for me, I'm very excited that we're in lockdown till midterm. I mean, it's awful, but people are at home and they have the time. For the customers who are willing to spend more, for £7.50, you can buy a frozen Sri Lankan meal, a beautiful curry made by a friend of mine. And unfortunately, because it has to be delivered frozen, the delivery is £12. So it comes out to £20. But if you have 5 customers who want to do a sampling of Sri Lankan cuisine anywhere in the country, I can get it to them overnight with notice, and we could do a cooking demonstration followed by each of them enjoying live on Zoom a Sri Lankan meal in front of them, which takes 8 minutes in the microwave, and it's fantastic. So £20 isn't cheap, but it's an option. So we can do the cooking demonstration, that's free. And if they want, they can then order a curry to be delivered to their house, even if then one is in Manchester and the other one's in, doesn't really matter. And there's a lot that we can do in Zoom. And now that people are stuck at home, trust me, they're looking for entertainment. Netflix isn't coming out fast enough with the channels and the programs to keep us going. But here's the chance that all of us can step into their shoes and, lighten their evenings. We can do cocktail presentations and all kinds of stuff that I can have one-to-one chats with you. And let's cruise in. And I would, to be frank, if you're confident, charge them for it. Why give them a free cooking demonstration? There's, to watch a football match these days costs at least £10-15 on TV. Why not charge them a £5 and say you'll give it, off as discount into the future when they book with you? I'm totally open with those things, because I think we need to stop giving our services for free and stop undervaluing them. But if you want to give it free, I'm happy to do that too.
Lovely.
Because you're all
Anyone else
entertainment.
have any other questions? No? Thank you so much for attending today's session. We really do appreciate it. Now, what I usually do with all our franchises, so there is many more that haven't been able to attend today, is I do send a video recording of today's session. And if I'm okay to release your email
It's absolutely, it's on the slides, yeah. Absolutely.
Brilliant. So feel free to make contact, guys, if you've got any questions. And yeah, brilliant session, very interesting. I've learnt loads.
Just one more question. I love LinkedIn and I love sharing stuff on LinkedIn. So I'd like to reach out to some